another video by Liminal Spaces. So today I want to talk about The Last Airbender because it came out today. I was incredibly surprised, honestly, to see that they actually put 8 episodes up. I believe that's the entire first season of The Last Airbender. I was a little tiny bit worried because, of course, the cartoon series had approximately 20 episodes per season, and there was 3 seasons, so it had like 60 episodes. So to see 8 episodes, I was a little bit worried, but in looking at it, I realized that each of the 8 episodes is about an hour long, and each of the original cartoon episodes are about 22 minutes long each. So in reality, if these episodes are just the first season, they've technically added a tiny bit, to be honest. I think mathematically it works out so the 8-hour long episodes are a little bit longer than the 22-minute episodes. So that's really nice. I was really pleased to see that. I do believe that the 8 episodes are the first season. I went ahead and we, of course, watched the first episode. And I went back to the cartoon and I compared, and they end in relatively the same spot at the end of the 3rd episode of the cartoon. Is basically the ending of the first episode of this new series. Of course, the new series is not animated. It's all live action. It is literally a remake of the original show. The original show came out in 2005, I believe, and it was a massive success. It had 3 seasons on Nickelodeon. It did stunningly well. I think Netflix picked it up after that, and it's just been showing ever since. They also made a follow-up cartoon, which was 4 seasons, which is Korra. And Korra is the airbender after Aang. So Aang is the last... No, that's not right. I'm sorry. Korra is the avatar after Aang is the avatar. Aang is the last airbender, which is a different thing. But that was also very, very successful and did very well. Then M. Night Shyamalan did a version of The Last Airbender, which you really should avoid. I love M. Night Shyamalan, right? Signs and The Sixth Sense and The Village and the elevator one with the weird devil in the elevator, and then the cabin one. And I really like his work, but he has made some really bad films, okay? And The Last Airbender might be the worst. So you can avoid that. But the 2 cartoons are incredible. And the reason that I was saying that it ends roughly in the same spot as the 3rd cartoon episode is because it's completely different. Now, they're telling the same story, but in a completely different manner. Some examples of changes are, I'm not going to go over every change, of course, because like literally everything has changed. But some examples of the changes are the live action show opens up with the Fire Nation declaring war on everyone else. And then we cut to Aang hanging out with all the airbenders and learning that he's the avatar. And then Aang goes out and gets lost in the ice as the Fire Nation attacks and destroys all the airbenders. And he gets frozen. And then the 2 people from the Water Nation find him frozen, and he's broken out of the ice. And he learns that he's the last airbender. Now, in the cartoons, it opens with the 2 Water Nation people finding him. And we kind of learn as he learns what his history was through several flashbacks, instead of it just being told in order. This new series is simply told in order. It doesn't hurt it in any way. It's incredible how good this show is, how good this basic story is. You know, you kind of wonder why don't they keep doing new things? And I think the honest reality is because they hit gold right off the bat. I mean, this story is just genius. So they return to it because it's really hard to top. You know, it's really hard to top. And everything they ever do will be compared to The Last Airbender, you know. So they might be stuck in a little loop, kind of like George Lucas with Star Wars. It's possible. But this is really, really good. I want to make that totally clear. It's a 10 out of 10, easy. If you haven't seen The Last Airbender at all and you like fantasy, I might even go so far as to say young adult fantasy, although the violence is turned up just a little bit in this version. I believe if you like fantasy, you're going to like this show. And of course, if you like The Last Airbender, you're going to love this show. It's just the show again, but a tiny bit different. Another example of the differences are the relationship between the brother and the sister in the Water Tribe. It's very, very brother sister childish in the cartoon. Right? They're constantly bickering. He calls her a girl. She calls him sexist. They're constantly bickering and going back and forth. But in this, they're a little more mature. They've seen a little bit more because of the war. And they do bicker, of course. It's still brother sister, but it's on a higher level, you know. They have more serious things to bicker about. And they kind of tease each other a little bit more, so it's not just constant bickering. It's a little bit more well-rounded. It's well done. The whole thing is really well done. The actors are great. The one thing that I would kind of point out is the transitions are a tiny bit rough. And I'm not talking about from scene to scene. I'm talking about within a scene, the little beat changes that will occur during a scene. Like if you're talking about one thing with someone and then they bring something else up, and you got to take that second where you go, oh, well, yeah, we could talk about that, I guess. And then you go on, right? That little transition. The transitions between, especially between the brother and sister, are a tiny bit rushed. And I think it's of course a combination of writing and editing and acting. It's all of that together, right? The writing is probably pretty fragmented, mostly because it comes from a cartoon. And I think cartoons naturally transition faster than live action productions do. I think live action is used to taking more time because it's used to having an older audience. And the older audiences want it to be natural and they want to understand what's really going on. And they want to see the characters making the transitions and going through those separate things. Whereas a cartoon for a child kind of needs to keep things going, right? So it moves a bit faster. And I feel like this writing team is kind of used to that. So the transitions, even though everything has been altered because it is a live action production, I feel like this team is still kind of used to moving quickly. So the transitions, especially for the brother and sister, seem to be a tiny bit rushed as they go through their scenes. But it's not a problem, right? I mean, it's so excellently done. One other thing that really stuck out to me is at the end of the first episode, which is the end of the third episode of the cartoon, Aang sees the destruction of his tribe. He literally goes there and sees the dead people and the broken buildings and all that, and he freaks out. And, you know, his head starts to glow and he floats up in the air and things are exploding. Very dramatic, right? But the way they get him to calm down is the sister explains to him that he still has a family. His family is now the brother and the sister. They are a family, which is really nice, right? That's a nice thing. In the live action version, she still talks him down, but as soon as he relaxes, she explains to him that the only good thing that you can possibly get out of losing everything is that you learn to fight, which is a completely different sentiment from one version to the other, right? It's a more, I think, a tiny bit more honest and a little bit more mature approach to this war-torn nation. This is still young adult. I would say that. The violence is up a little bit. Well, especially because they're real people now, right? They're not cartoons. And cartoons can still affect people, but there is a subtle difference, right? This is live action, and the people that they kill, it's dramatic. It's I feel like it's kind of a bigger deal. So it's nice that they've lifted this dialogue up with that. I think it's really going to keep the heart and the original intent of the cartoon, but it's moving it to a live action place, which this is weird because my first thought is don't change anything. Why would you change anything? But making it live action, for starters, why would you do that, right? It was immensely successful. It did its thing. Why would you even bother to make a live action version? And I think that the reason that they do that, of course, is because they want it to be available for a new generation, right? You can call it a cash grab or just trying to have your legacy continue or whatever you want it to be. The neat thing they're doing with this is they're not just taking the script and filming it. They are saying, what is the difference between a cartoon and a live action production, right? For starters, we need real people. Also, we need real dialogue. Also, we need real editing. There are many differences between a cartoon and a live action production. And I believe that this production is updating itself in all the ways that it needs to. It is an excellent show. The effects look great, which is such a relief because the M. Night Shyamalan does not look good. I mean, those stupid water spouts that are like shooting out of the ground and moving around. I mean, it's ridiculous. But the effects look amazing in this, which is great. There is one weird tiny plot thing which I had to point out, which is dumb. It's just me. In the beginning, you got this earth fighting person, and he's running from fire people, and he gets to the point where he could jump on his horse and get away. His guys there, they got two horses, and he's like, "Come on, get on the horse, let's go." But the fire people are right behind him. So the fire people knock him down, and he drops the thing that he's supposed to be carrying. He's got this little scroll, right? And the fire people are coming toward him, and he hits the ground, and he makes this explosion of rock that just, it doesn't kill all the people, but it definitely knocks the wind out of them for a moment. Like they are down. And he doesn't jump up and grab the scroll and jump on the horse and take off. And he doesn't build a rock wall between him. I mean, they're in an alley, a tight alley. He doesn't build a rock wall between him and the bad guys and grab the scroll and jump on the horse and take off. What he does is he uses his rock power to knock the scroll to the other guy that's on the horses. And then he makes a wall in front of himself, between himself and the horses, to hold him in and the fire people in, and tells his buddy to take off, which was just kind of silly. I really appreciate seeing this person willing to sacrifice themselves to make sure that this very important information gets out. I totally get the plot point idea, but the way it was done looks silly because he's got plenty of time. I mean, after he wipes those guys out, just go, or take time to build a wall, right? Because the wall works the other way. It's not like they just blast the wall down. He fights them for a little bit and they fight him and they end up capturing him. But the wall's still there. I don't know. That was a weird kind of moment and I don't know if it's editing. I don't think it's writing. I feel like it's directing and editing that kind of take the hit for that one because it looked a little bit silly. They may have lingered on them being knocked down from all the rocks too long or something like that, right? That was just a silly little moment. But it's brilliant. It's completely brilliant. I should try to use our ratings. Now this is fantasy. This is not science fiction. Okay? So I'm going to just replace our science category straight up with a fantasy category. I know it's kind of silly, right? But I feel like they should be interchangeable. If we're not going to talk about asteroids flying through space and smashing into things, then we need to be talking about people with wings flying around through trees or something, right? We're going to replace those two categories. So, for philosophy, this is cool, right? This show is kind of anti-war. It's about culture, different cultures being able to exist together. It's got all kinds of wonderful messages like that. So for philosophy, I I'm I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm gonna give it a 9. Okay, we'll say 9 for philosophy. I was almost gonna give it a 10, but I think we have to see how it goes. Right? I've only watched the first episode, even though the first entire season is up, which was shocking to me. But yeah, so I watched the first episode. Um, we'll give it a 9 for philosophy. For fantasy, right? The idea of this magic of these people who can do specific things, and then there's this one person who can do all four. We'll go with 10. I mean, the world is just awesome. I think it's part of the main appeal of the show, with the characters being right up there as well. The characters are wonderful. The world is wonderful, right? So we'll go with 10 with that. Ah, so I think that special effects are going to fall under this because it is live action. Seeing these people, seeing all the fire and all the wind, and then they're battling each other and they're sliding back and flying through the air and the giant waves taking things over. I think the awe is very good in this. I'm going to go 8 with that because they do some really neat stuff in this world. It's really wonderful. So we'll go 8 with that. So for heart, like this, it's through the roof in this show. It really is. Because it's about the relationships of the people. Even the bad guys slowly become good guys. Like, honestly, the heart in this is huge. So we'll just go 10 with that. So I think we've got 10, 10, 9, 8 for this. This is easily the most successful product that I've reviewed on this channel. Right? Like, clearly, 10, 10, 9, 8 is 29, 37. 37 out of 40. Like, this show's a 10. Just straight up. If you like fantasy, I think you will adore this. If you like The Last Airbender, you will adore this. Even if you're just looking for something to watch, you should give it a try because it might become one of your favorites. I mean, it's a classic, even though it's so new. Honestly, I feel like it's a classic, and this new version of it is just stellar. It's just dead on. They've done all the right things. The changes are good. The things they keep the same are good, thankfully. because I think that's where things can really start to fall apart, is when you get really dramatic changes. These changes are subtle but important. It's excellent. It's truly excellent. I don't know if I'm going to make a video for every episode. I don't know how much I'd have to say. If we see we're going to watch it, of course. If we see anything really crazy, I'll probably make another video. Maybe I'll do one per season or something. But I don't feel like this is like Star Trek, where it's so different every time. This is one story. It's just one big story. It's just a long movie, really. And it's totally worth watching. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe, because we have a ton of it. If you liked this, hit the like button, please. It really helps us out. And thank you so much. Have a great day.